Good day to you all. I'm Dr. Lara Jehi, Cleveland Clinic's Chief Research Information Officer, and it is my privilege to be sharing the next few minutes with you to talk about how does quantum computing fit into an AI machine learning strategy. I know you've already heard from many of my colleagues about the clinical aspects of AI. We will focus here on how do we expand from AI and machine learning to quantum computing. Our learning objectives will be first to provide a brief overview of the AI landscape in healthcare. Then we will discuss the rationale and potential advantages of quantum computing in healthcare, and then we will list some applications that we are exploring. And my ask of you is to put yourself in an innovation state of mind. This is a cartoon that I feel illustrates this very well. The pouring rain that we are dealing with in healthcare and life sciences is data. There is a flood of data that's coming at us from all angles, and we could be irritated with that and not know what to do with it and just want to shield ourselves and just to keep going. Or we could see that as an opportunity and look for a different way to use the tools that we have at our disposal to transform this challenge into an opportunity. And thinking that way is exactly how one needs to be, to look at a technology that is as new and as innovative as quantum computing. You will not see the value of quantum computing if you are still boxed in a traditional approach to operations and to research. And you'll see what I mean as the talk goes along. It is very easy to see how AI is transforming healthcare right now. The size of AI in healthcare in the US is growing exponentially. You know, this graph that you see here shows us just the US market and how the size of AI use in healthcare has grown since 2020. It was close to $10 billion last year, and it's expected to grow to much, much more than that by 2030. The expected CAGR is 35.8%, which is obviously significant. And what you see here is just the US size of the market. The global AI market last year was almost twice as ours. It was $19.3 billion, which if you look at it, you know, almost half of the money that is being spent on AI worldwide is happening in the US. I mean, that in itself is a big revelation, and it's similarly expected to grow by 2030, probably because we're driving that market. And those applications of AI in healthcare cover a wide array of things, you know, all the way from robotic surgeries to virtual assistants to clinical trials, better design optimization. You see this, you know, the slathering of all of the different uses over there, which are all great challenges that we need to deal with. And it's easy to see why AI makes sense. First, the fuel for AI, which is that big data, is now growing at an unprecedented pace. The size of health-related data grew from 153 exabytes in 2013 to 2,300 in 2020. There is, in parallel to this flood of data, there is an increasing demand, right? So if data is the supply, the demand is the output of how are you using all of that information, you doctors, to help me better take care of myself as the one patient. And that's really personalized medicine. And that's fueled by significant efficiencies and costs. Precision medicine is largely anchored around genetic sequencing, genomics, and the cost of that, the cost of sequencing the human genome when it was first started in 2001 was, look at the number, $300 million. But then in 2021, it was already $1,000. Now you could probably do it for $300 or $400 in some instances. So all of those samples that we are collecting on patients are getting sequenced. And then that is adding that whole layer to the data that goes beyond what you would get from electronic health records or reports of imaging, etc. You have the raw data, the raw imaging data, the raw electrophysiology data, and then all of the genetic sequencing. So we have all of the building blocks that are just ready for AI to crunch through and then give us useful insights. And the third driver is that there is a beyond the individual demand for personalized medicine. There is a collective societal demand to make healthcare more cost effective. We spend $1 out of $5, 18% of our GDP is spent on taking care of patients in the US. So we need better ways to reduce the cost of delivering healthcare. And the pressure is on AI to help us develop more effective pathways to take care of people and reduce their disease burden. So with that background, then, where does quantum computing come in? Why, since there is so much that is heavily weighted on AI, why would anybody want to think about quantum computing? I can share with you our experience in Cleveland Clinic and why we have invested into quantum computing. That decision was made in 2021 as we were turning 100 years old as an organization. We took stock of what we did in the previous 100 years, and then we were thinking of the legacy that we want to leave behind 100 years from now. So we are thinking way long term, far into the future. And when you are in that mindset, you do think differently. This is a book that I encourage you to take a look at. I love the book. It's called The 3-Box Solution. It looks at organizations that have grown globally and have been able to sustain that growth over time. So what's the secret to longevity of a successful organization? And it talks about the need to organize our thinking into these 3 boxes. Box 1 is the present. What do we need to do to be relevant right now? What is expected of us? And in the healthcare space, what is expected of us right now is to be applying AI. The whole world is looking at different applications of AI in healthcare. So we have to do it, but that only gets us through today. Box 3 is creating the future. And the future is at least 10 years from now. It is not tomorrow. It is not next year's budget. It is 10 years from now. What is the next frontier of computation after AI? And that is quantum. So the time to invest in quantum would be now, so that we are shaping that future and we are ready for it. Otherwise, we would always be playing catch up. And 10 years from now, we are in a place where we are just learning from others and we're behind that path. Box two is what we need to throw away, what's holding us back from evolving and what we need to change about our operations. So with that mindset, we had to develop a strategy that takes care of both the present and the future, that invests both in AI, but then also in quantum computing. And I know here I shared with you the Cleveland Clinic view on this, but this is not a unique Cleveland Clinic view. There is a map, which I'm sure you could find if you look it up, of the distribution of the size of investment in quantum computing throughout the world. And you'll see that across the world, this is now a race, quantum computing. The US, the data as of 2023, so last year, the US has invested $3.7 billion in quantum technologies. You think that's a big amount, but China invested $25 billion into quantum. Germany invested $6.8 billion into quantum. The UK invested 2.5 billion pounds, so more than that in dollars into that same technology. So we're talking about a wave in computation that is taking over what the future of compute will look like. And it is such a new technology that it takes time for us to learn it, test it, know its limits, and know what needs to be improved in it so that it would be applicable in healthcare and life sciences. And it is that global perspective, that thinking that catalyzed our investment, which is actually a physical investment. We have installed a quantum computer. The strength of a quantum computer is measured in how many qubits, that's the unit of compute it has, in Cleveland Clinic in the middle of our research labs. This is the first quantum that is installed on premises outside of a technology company. It's the first one in the world, and still the only one, that is fully dedicated to healthcare and life sciences. There's a handful of those machines across the globe, and we are privileged to have one right here on site. I could see it actually from my window, and it is fully dedicated to support healthcare and life science research that is happening in Cleveland Clinic, but then also anywhere else in the world that is interested in taking advantage of this technology and collaborating with us. So what makes a quantum computer so special? There are many different explanations, that people have tried for this. And I'll give you what I found to be the one that works best for me to communicate about it. You need to know what is the basic unit of how any computer really works. You always hear about the bits, right? The zeros and ones of how data is being coded in a regular computer. Imagine that bit is a room that you go into, and then that room stores information through how much light is in it. And then, you reach and then you flip the light switch. And you can flip it up and light comes up, and then that room is light. And then you flip it down and then the light goes away, it's dark, and then it's dark. The flip it up, the light is a 1. The flip it down, the dark is a 0. So then that information, that data is stored in that room, in that bit, in only one of these two states, either a 0 or a 1, light or dark. This is how any computer works. And we can build more rooms. We can add how much storage can be there. This is how you would build, say, a supercomputer. You can have many people in many different rooms flipping switches up and down and run parallel processing. This is what happens quite often when we're doing AI and machine learning. But the fundamental unit, the fundamental bottleneck for how the data is stored is you're still limited by that light flip, up, down, 0, 1, and that's it. Now get out of this room and then enter in another one, and that's the qubit. That's the fundamental unit of compute in a quantum. There, it's not a light switch, it's a dimmer. So you can turn it up, the room becomes lighter, you can turn it down, the room becomes darker, but you could really stop it anywhere in between. There is these endless combinations of light and dark that can be stored in this room. The endless combinations of zeros and ones. We say a qubit has a endless probabilities of the 0 and 1 coexisting. That becomes too technical. Just think of it in terms of the light. It could be any one of these different combinations. So there is, just by the mere fact that that is possible, that opens up so much more room for data to be stored in this one qubit, in this one room. That quantum principle is called superposition. Add on top of that the fact that you can be in just this one room and this one dimmer is controlling light in the whole building. And all of that information is also stored in this just one place that you're in. So that is called entanglement. And that exponentially opens up the opportunity for how much data you can store and you can handle just from the one fundamental unit of compute that exists in a quantum. And that is reflected in the power of the computer. With a classical computer, the classical bits, you add more bits, all you're doing is you're just adding a 2 times n, right? You're just adding compute capability on top of each other. But with qubits, the growth is exponential. And you see, when you get up to qubit numbers that are, past the 20, for example, that's what you see here on the x-axis of the second graph. The growth becomes really significant. With every single qubit that you add, you're doubling the capacity of the whole quantum. So when you're going from 20 to 21, you're only adding 1 qubit, but the doubling of the capacity that was there before makes a huge difference. And that is what this curve is showing you. To drive this closer to language that we are familiar with, and healthcare and life sciences, take the human genome. It contains 3 billion base pairs, and it can be stored. To store the genetic sequence of one individual, we need approximately 1.5 gigabytes. If we want to do the same thing, but in a quantum computer, store the genetic sequence of one individual in a quantum computer, theoretically, we would be able to do that in just 34 qubits. See, from 1.5 giga to only 34. That difference is tremendous. Now, say you want to store the genetic sequence of the whole world's population. There's like 7 billion people of us. And you want to do that with a classical computer, a supercomputer, doesn't matter, classical in the sense that it's still relying on the bits. Then you need the 1.5 giga multiplied by the 7 billion. There is no supercomputer large enough in the world to be able to store that information right now. That doesn't exist. To do it in a quantum computer, just doubling from 34 qubits to 68 should be enough space to do that. So that gives you a sense of the scale of potentially how powerful these machines can be. The quantum computer that is now on site in Cleveland Clinic is 127 qubits, and there are stronger machines even that are being developed. The risk still is that the machine is these qubits are still not stable enough to be able to handle that much computation, and there is a limit to what can be done with them without significant error. So there is a lot of work that still needs to be done on the engineering side to make sure that the technology realizes its full potential. But the pace of progress that is happening on the engineering side has been, mind-boggling. So I'm very confident that we will get there. And all the, and thus the size of all of those investments throughout the globe that I mentioned earlier, with nations racing towards making this successful. The other application is in chemistry, where a fundamental exercise in developing drugs, for example, is to simulate in three-dimensional space how they can look, how they will actually look, and if they will bind to their targets or not. This is one example of a very small, molecule. And even in this context where, if all we had to do was to simulate this small compound, the small cluster, the F cluster inside this big enzyme, this is where the largest supercomputer is stuck, just simulating this. And we have to really be able to simulate all of that to all of what's around it to be able to be successful. So this is one, and another application that we're looking at quantum for. And we already published, I'll show you the paper later, that we've outperformed the best available AI algorithm in doing those simulations. Altogether, the quantum applications in healthcare and life sciences at the Cleveland Clinic actually mirror the path that seems to be materializing across the world over what can you use quantum computing for in healthcare and life sciences. The one big umbrella is quantum simulations. So using quantum to simulate these three-dimensional structures for proteins or other drugs and targets. This has applications in quantum chemistry, so mostly for drug development and material science. The second application is quantum machine learning. So this would be the situation where you take any AI algorithm that is stuck in the sense that either it is not performing well as far as predictions. In our institution, we use an area under the curve cutoff of 0.7. So if it's not more than 70% accurate, no matter what we do with AI and machine learning to make it good, then we look at whether quantum computing can improve that. Or we take algorithms that may be accurate, but they're too computationally intensive to implement in the real world. If an AI model needs hundreds of data inputs and they're coming from so many different modalities that takes so much post-processing before you get the features that you need to include in the model, then that's all fine and dandy for research, but there is no way to translate it in a clinic and make it actually meaningful to people. It excites researchers, but doesn't make it to the clinical side. So that's a situation where we investigate whether quantum computing can help with, we call it feature reduction, helping us identify what of all those different inputs is actually critical. So we just focus on making sure that those are available for clinical implementation. And then the third area of application is called in quantum optimization. So that is taking complex processes and looking at how quantum can simplify them. So take something like designing a clinical trial and then selecting the sites for running it. We have, pharma companies and various sponsors, they have endless options of what sites to go to, endless different little combinations of inclusion, exclusion criteria to design a clinical trial. How do they know which is the most efficient combination of inclusion, exclusion criteria and the most efficient combination of sites to make sure that this trial is done in maybe 5 or 6 years. Even that would be nice, instead of the 7-10 years that it now takes to go through all of the different phases of clinical trials before a drug gets to market. So this is one example of a complex process that there is an opportunity to look for quantum to simplify. So think of quantum computing as being just one tool in a technology foundation that includes all capabilities ranging from AI to hybrid cloud, quantum. And in our case, we've partnered with IBM Research to think of how can all of these different tools be combined into other tools for accelerated discovery. But it's really just a tool, and you could get it from any technology source that you want. The trick, the point is that you have to align it and figure out what is it most successful for, what is it most useful for, and how does it fit in that whole system, right? We're never going to be in a place where all computation happens on quantum. That would be such a waste of resources. So how do we know what are the types of problems that classical computing is good enough for? And that's really all we need to do. And how do we switch from that to quantum computing and then back as we need to? This is exactly the type of work that we're doing with our collaborators in here, and we're looking at answering those questions for the different areas, the scientific challenges of biomedical research. And it takes a very long time to go from an idea that is challenging in healthcare and life sciences research to an actual project that is applying quantum computing. You have to adapt it. Not every challenge could be answered, especially with the limits of the technology of today. But we're making great progress. And there are funding agencies, innovative funding agencies, that are looking at quantum computing for biological sciences. So this was a call that came out from the Quantum Leap, a branch of the Wellcome Trust Foundation. And they invested in quantum for biological applications. They wanted to see applications that have a relatively high chance of showing results, tangible results within the next 3 years or so. They received hundreds of applications from throughout the globe, and they funded 12 of them. 2 of those were awarded to Cleveland Clinic teams, one by Dr. Daniel Brankenberg. It's looking at protein folding, that chemistry application I mentioned, and the other by Dr. Sabrina Maniscalco, who's the CEO of Algorithmic, a startup that we are working with to develop photoactive drugs. So there is hopefully a lot to learn moving forward. This is a selection of publications that if you're interested in learning more about this, you can look at. The one is a white paper looking at how could quantum help with optimizing clinical trials. The second is a publication showing how for one particular rare disease, we use Zika virus here as the example, we were able to outperform AlphaFold 2 in predicting the 3-dimensional structure of compounds. And I will finish with this. This is a 2-minute video that is showing one example, another use case for quantum computing that we're exploring here. And this is our CEO, Dr. Tom Mihailovich, introducing it.
Isn't it? The outcome of lung cancer is better if we can find it early in its course. before it's spread. Oftentimes, there are no symptoms or signs of lung cancer, and so it's very hard to detect. If we had an easy-to-use, accurate, inexpensive molecular biomarker, a blood test, the number of lives saved every year would be 50,000 in the US alone. We've been very fortunate to be the clinical research lead of a couple of blood test studies for early lung cancer detection. The first is a fragmentomics-based assay. In the blood, the DNA gets digested into little pieces or fragments. There may be more highly variable fragment lengths if it came from a cancer cell than from a healthy normal cell. The second study is looking at methylation of genes, attachment of a certain chemical to specific locations within the gene can affect gene signaling. There's been an association between some of those methylation changes and the risk of developing cancer, including lung cancer. These tests are developed with a huge number of molecular features. It's very difficult for classical computing, classical machine learning algorithms to handle that large a number of different features. With this partnership with IBM, we'll be able to evaluate whether quantum computing, quantum machine learning algorithms are able to find patterns amongst all of these variables more accurately than the traditional approaches can. This is the future, and it builds on everything that's led up to now. Doing these sorts of projects, it's very exciting. Bringing together all this expertise in quantum computer with people who really know how to use that quantum computer and all be part of a team, that's where you see progress accelerate the fastest.
One in 6 people worldwide lives with a neurological disorder, such as that.
So I hope this was helpful to bring quantum computing to life for you. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention and wish you a great meeting otherwise. Thank you. Thank you all.